Hi, Professor PJ here, focusing on vocabulary used in communication studies, which for this video is inherency. You'll hear this term mostly in the context of critical thinking, persuasion, and argumentation, specifically in policy debate. In fact, inherency, sometimes called blame, is one of the stock issues in a policy debate. If you are advocating for a major change, you need to address inherency or assign blame. As you'll probably look the word up in a basic online dictionary, that's where we'll start too. Unfortunately, dictionary.com isn't very helpful, as it defines inherency as inherence or something inherent. Okay, inherent. The definition that most applies is the first. Existing in someone or something as a permanent and inseparable element, quality, or attribute. Merriam-Webster Dictionary provides a similar definition, involved in the constitution or essential character of something. While the word inherent is easy to confuse with the word inherit, in both sound and spelling, it's not the same. In grammarist's comparison of the two, the main difference appears to be that something inherited is passed down to someone, like from a will or through genetics or a situation. And inherent is an essential characteristic, like the bullying characteristic one of my cats has, which has more than earned him his less than positive nickname. So, inherency is an aspect of something or someone that is difficult, if not impossible, to change. Not quite the same, but you can see how something inherent, like facial features or acting ability, can be inherited. Let's check Merriam-Webster's Did You Know tab for a little more clarification. Inherent literally refers to something that is stuck in something else so firmly that they can't be separated. A plan may have an inherent flaw that will cause it to fail. A person may have inherent virtues that everyone admires. Since the flaw and the virtues can't be removed, the plan may simply have to be thrown out. How does this play out? Let's look at a real-life example. Right before the calendar changed from 1999 to 2000, abbreviated Y2K, dire warnings were issued about the millennial bug causing power outages, transportation system chaos, bank errors, and more. No idea how this would impact wild dog packs, but that was one of the warnings. The U.S. Deputy Department of Defense, John Hamre, predicted that the Y2K problem is the electronic equivalent of the El Niño, and there will be nasty surprises around the globe. The UK published a pamphlet to keep us in the know. Even Leonard Nimoy from Star Trek offered advice with a book and video which KQED claimed would scare the crap out of America. Why? We've changed centuries before and nothing like this happened, right? It all had to do with technology, specifically computer programming and limited computer memory and storage space. Not an issue during the last change of the century. Recording a year in a data file as a simple two-digit number, 60, rather than 1960, was a common shortcut, and takes less room than 4 digits. So that's the way dates were formatted. For example, the year 1960 was stored as the last 2 digits, 60. So what happens if the year 2060 is also stored as 60? These numbers are used for calculations such as birth dates, compound interest, prisoner release dates, so you can imagine the concern. Remember the last line in the Merriam-Webster's Did You Know section? Since the flaw and virtues can't be removed, the plan may simply have to be thrown out. In this case, the plan is the status quo, the existing state or condition. The problem was inherent in the computer programs themselves because they were designed, or structured, so that there was only room for 2 numbers, not 4. And by the time people started paying attention, so many programs had already been created with this flaw that the issue was considered urgent. This is an inherency claim. The problem exists or will exist due to an inherent flaw in the status quo that can't be resolved without a major change. So we need to do something different now. As you probably figured out, all these catastrophic predictions didn't come true. Whether the naysayers were correct in claims that most personal computer hardware and software would be unaffected, or the $300 billion spent to revise programs and create contingency plans worked. Perhaps knowing about the different types of inherency will help clarify the concept. All of these focus on demonstrating that the status quo is unable to resolve an issue or problem, and thus a new or different approach should be considered. Structural. How a system is built makes it difficult, if not impossible, to easily solve the problem. This often refers to laws, poorly written, contradictory, inconsistent, so you may hear this called legislative inherency. However, it also refers to other types of barriers. In the Y2K case, the inherency is structural, the structure of the computer programs to accommodate the limits of computer memory and storage. Attitudinal. Beliefs, attitudes, or moods which prevent the status quo from fixing the problem. While there are many laws that address driving while intoxicated, if they aren't enforced, as was often the case in the 1960s, or considered a rite of passage, or people think they are good drivers even when intoxicated, the status quo isn't working. Existential. The status quo doesn't have a solution. It could be that a law doesn't exist, or something hasn't been done yet, or is not likely to be done. To go back to the drunk driving example, there were no laws making drunk driving a crime until New York passed one in 1910. And even then, there was no set definition of what was too drunk to drive. This lack of a solution or lack of law is sometimes referred to as gap inherency. To carry this one step further, the establishment of a trend that is developing so fast that the status quo won't be able to adjust is also an example of showing that the status quo is unable to adapt. Again, a gap exists between what the status quo can do and what will be needed. Once you understand the concept of inherency, you'll see that it is, well, inherent in many everyday situations, not just major policy decisions. The important thing is to consider if there really is something inherently wrong with the status quo, or if a minor repair could improve the situation without a major change, or if a change in perspective is enough. Upset stomach? What is the cause? Maybe you can blame that tuna sandwich you ate, probably a temporary bout of food poisoning. Not inherent. Or perhaps you have a fish allergy significant enough that you will have to make a major change in your diet, a new approach to eating. Inherent. Dissatisfied with your current relationship? Why? Is something stressful going on? It may not be inherent in the relationship. But if there is some troubling behavior that seems to be an inherent part of this relationship, it may be time to consider some sort of intervention to either save or end the relationship. Before you commit to a major change, ask yourself, do you have to throw out the existing plan, the status quo, because you can't remove the flaws? If so, the flaws are inherent. If it's a big enough or significant enough problem caused by an inherent flaw, it may be time to consider alternative solutions or plans. Of course, you'll have to seriously investigate those alternative plans because sometimes, to paraphrase philosopher Francis Bacon's medical analogy, the remedy could be worse than the disease. Adopting a new plan to replace the status quo could result in an even worse problem. Inherency. Another word or concept you can add to your mental dictionary. I love sharing information like this, so check out my other videos. Learning about communication topics is fun, and I think valuable.